Ukraine's Western allies rallied around the war-torn country on Saturday as they pushed to revise a U.S. peace plan seen as favoring Moscow despite its all-out invasion of its neighbor. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has vowed Ukrainians will always defend their home. The leaders of France, Germany, and the UK met during the day on the sidelines of a Group of 20 summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, to discuss ways to support Kiev, according to a person with knowledge of the matter who spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. French President Macron told reporters later, although he welcomed U.S. peace efforts, "Our unique problem for all of us is Russia, who started this war, who refused to take the ceasefire proposals in February, March, July, August, etc." Addressing the G20 summit, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said, "The 28-point plan has a number of important elements which are essential to a just and lasting peace. And that's what we all want. There is more to do on the plan." A Ukrainian delegation, bolstered by representatives from France, Germany, and the UK, is preparing for direct talks with Washington in Switzerland on Sunday. The 28-point blueprint drawn up by the US to end the nearly 4-year war sparked alarm in Kiev and European capitals, with Zelensky saying his country could face a stark choice between standing up for its sovereign rights and preserving the American support it needs. The US plan foresees Ukraine handing over territory to Russia, something Kiev has repeatedly ruled out, while reducing the size of its army and blocking its coveted path to NATO membership. It contains many of Moscow's long-standing demands, while offering limited security guarantees to Kiev. On Saturday, leaders of the European Union, Canada, and Japan issued a joint statement welcoming U.S. peace efforts, but pushed back against key tenets of the plan. Macron said the U.S. peace plan for Ukraine requires broader consultation, adding, "We want a robust and lasting peace." In turn, German Chancellor Merz said that an end to the war can only be achieved with the unconditional consent of Ukraine. Wars cannot be ended by major powers over the heads of the countries affected. European leaders have long accused Russia of stalling diplomatic efforts in the hope of overwhelming Ukraine's much smaller forces on the battlefield. Kiev has repeatedly accepted U.S. ceasefire proposals this year, while Moscow has held out for more favorable terms.
So, meine Damen und Herren, der Bundeskanzler ist für ein Statement hier. Wir haben heute keine Zeit für Fragen. Morgen ist eine Pressekonferenz. Heute ein Statement.
Es wird jetzt weitere Beratungen geben aus der Gruppe der E3 und weiterer Vertreter der Europäischen Union sind jetzt die außenpolitischen Berater auf dem Weg nach Genf. Es wird morgen im Laufe des Tages weitere Beratungen in Genf geben mit Vertretern der amerikanischen Regierung und mit Vertretern der Ukraine. Und ich will in diesem Zusammenhang sehr deutlich sagen, eine Beendigung des Krieges kann es natürlich nur dann geben, wenn es eine uneingeschränkte Zustimmung der Ukraine gibt. Kriege können nicht beendet werden durch Großmächte über die Köpfe der betroffenen Länder hinweg, sondern es ist ein Krieg, der nur beendet werden kann mit der Zustimmung der Ukraine und mit auch unserer Zustimmung, der europäischen Zustimmung, denn es ist ein Krieg auf dem europäischen Kontinent. Und je nachdem, wie dieser Krieg ausgeht, wird es Auswirkungen haben auf die Sicherheit Europas. Sie wissen, dass ich gestern Abend kurz vor meinem Abflug mit Präsident Trump noch ein längeres Telefonat gehabt habe. Ich habe ihm diese Position auch deutlich gemacht. Ich habe ihn auch noch einmal daran erinnert, wie Russland mit dem Budapester Memorandum umgegangen ist, wo es schon einmal eine Zusage Russlands gegenüber der Ukraine gab. Die Ukraine hat damals auf ein großes Waffenarsenal verzichtet, unter anderem auf Atomwaffen verzichtet. Und im Gegenzug die Zusage Russlands erhalten, auf Dauer die territoriale Integrität dieses Landes zu akzeptieren. Das hat Russland nicht eingehalten. Deswegen müssen jetzt andere Sicherheitsgarantien gegeben werden, es müssen andere Verabredungen getroffen werden, verlässlichere Verabredungen getroffen werden. Und noch einmal, wir sind als Europäer, wir sind als Deutsche bereit, uns an diesem Prozess zu beteiligen. Wir sind mittendrin und es gibt aus meiner Sicht im Augenblick eine Chance, diesen Krieg zu beenden, aber wir sind von einem gemeinsamen guten Ergebnis noch ziemlich weit entfernt. Herzlichen Dank.
Vielen Dank.
Well, the plan, the 28-point plan, has a number of important elements which are essential to a just and lasting peace, and that's what we all want. There is more to do on the plan, and we've had a meeting this afternoon of like-minded leaders from the Coalition of the Willing, who are here at the G20, to engage on that. And tomorrow in Geneva, there'll be a meeting of senior US personnel, of Ukrainians, and of NSA's, national security advisors from Europe, including my national security advisor, to take things further forward.
And have you spoken to President Trump yet about this peace plan personally?
I talk to President Trump frequently, and I'm expecting to talk to him again in coming days. But look, there's been a lot of discussion in the last few days at the European level with the Ukrainians. It is fast moving, as you say. I think the focus very much now is on Geneva tomorrow, and whether we can make progress tomorrow morning.
Prime Minister, deal.
Well, we're talking to President Zelensky pretty well continually. I spoke to him yesterday along with Chancellor Merz and President Macron. I'm expecting to talk to President Zelensky again in about an hour or so, hopefully, if we can set that up. And of course, we'll be there in Geneva tomorrow. It is important to keep firmly in mind what we're all trying to achieve, which is a just and lasting peace. But also underpinning that is the principle that I've always adhered to, that all matters about Ukraine must be determined in the end by Ukraine, and that's why we're talking very regularly with the Ukrainians.
And final question,
Well, I'm absolutely clear in my mind that President Trump wants a just and lasting peace, not just from the actions he's taken towards that end, but also from the private discussions that I've had with him one-to-one on this issue. So I know what he's trying to achieve. We all want to achieve that, and that is what our focus is. I think it is important to say that one of the elements in the 28-point plan is the security guarantee from the US, an Article 5 guarantee. That's about the strongest guarantee that can be put forward. And so that fortifies in me the belief that what we're all trying to achieve here is a just and lasting peace, but it'll only be just and lasting if there are security guarantees and if we bear in mind that matters for Ukraine are always to be determined by Ukraine.
Prime Minister, thank you.
Ukraine, the US, the Europeans want peace, but we want a robust and long-standing peace. I think it's very good that the US proposed something to go to a ceasefire and peace, and we have to commend these efforts. But at the same time, as what is at stake is obviously Ukrainian sovereignty and European security. It's normal to have both the Ukrainians and the Europeans on the table to finalize this plan. So this is exactly what we will do tomorrow and the day after in order to make a common plan. Now, we just have one problem, and our problem is not the US on this negotiation at this point. Our unique problem, all of us, is Russia. We started this war. We refused to take the ceasefire proposals in February, March, July, August, etc., and didn't provide any guidance if they are okay just to have a ceasefire now and look at the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, not just in the east, but everywhere. Look at the situation of the infrastructure of energy and so on. Look at the civilian casualties. I mean, this is a necessity to stop the Russians. There is one aggressor and one victim. Full stop.